I didn't get have you on deck. Are you ready to go? And then Corrine, you're on deck.
Sure. My name's Selena. I live in Aurora, Colorado, and I I don't. I like that Heidi said she laughed all the time. I probably don't. I get offended a lot, and kind of am sensitive to different things. My husband is very funny, and so I'm just used to rolling my eyes at him instead of actually laughing. And so so I think that like just I like having humor around, but I'm not someone that laughs easily, and so I'm not. Sometimes when I try to be funny, because that's my personality, people also like think I'm being serious and don't like recognize that. And so that's why this is good for me.
Thanks, Selena. Yeah. Again, it's a good point. Your audience, if they don't know you're laughing, it just reminds me of a time when my sister-in-law, who I love, said, "I want you to do stand-up comedy at my after prom high school party," which they don't have the same point of view. And I had some jokes about being divorced. I said I was feeling so vulnerable that I went on a date with a Walmart greeter, and they thought I was serious. They're like, "Oh." And so my brother had 2 water bottles, and he would go, "Kadum chink." It was almost like the laugh line. So they would know. Sometimes they just needed to know these are just jokes. That's fun. So anyway, thanks, Selena, for sharing. Corrine, you're up, and then Daniel, you're on deck.
Hi, good morning. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I grew up with a very sarcastic dad, and everyone says I sound just like him. So I'm always doing the one-liners or the sarcasm. But the last time I laughed, my son and his wife are having a baby, and any time now, and they still haven't decided on a name. And I raised both of my children in Texas. I lived there for 30 years. So I got everyone we did a family Zoom, and I got everyone laughing because I said, well, worst case scenario, because I think my dad said, well, you can't take the baby out of the hospital without a name. And I said, well, worst case scenario, just name him Bubba, from the Texas. And everybody was laughing. So I do laugh a lot, and I'm really, well known for my laugh. So I love it. That's why I'm here. Learn more.
Awesome. Baby Bubba. That's very cute. Thanks, Corrine. Daniel, you're up, and Michelle, you're on deck. Oh, unmute, please.
Unmute.
There we go.
Hello there, I'm Daniel, off the streets of Brooklyn. I really related to what Michael said, his first thing. I have a pit in my stomach of anxiety here when you ask me about what do I find funny or what's my sense of humor. When was the last time I laughed? I don't laugh very much. Most of the time, I'm very, very serious and angry and aghast at all the stuff that's going on right now, and very little to laugh about. So there are a couple of things though. So what I can get in this conversation is that I get smiles sometimes. I get to smile. Something that made me smile recently was I saw a video, one of these videos of these 2 dogs, these 2 sweet little dogs lying on the floor, kissing each other, like their mouths on each other, kissing each other. That left me with a very long smile of appreciation of that. I had that moment. But then an example of my seriousness and inability to laugh is like I wear this shirt every day when I walk out, and there are people that come up to me and say, I can't breathe either with all these masks and shit. And I laugh when they say that, but I'm left wondering whether they really are serious and they don't know what this really means or where it really comes from. And so then the ignorance of the laugh becomes one of cynical contempt for their ignorance. So it's really not funny, even though I laughed.
Thank you, Daniel. And I appreciate everyone being so authentic and vulnerable and sharing, Yeah. Michelle, you're up. And Teresa, you're on deck.
Hello, I'm in Evergreen, Colorado, west of Denver in the mountains, and I have two teenagers. They make me laugh all the time, especially my daughter. So last night we were hanging out, and she wants to be a polyglot. She loves to learn languages, and she loves to watch YouTube videos and share them with me. So she was showing me some with someone who speaks 10 languages walking around a city and surprising people that he knew their language. It was wild, and they were so surprised and happy. And then also like French people trying to speak English words like squirrel or different words that they can't say. So she's always watching me funny stuff. So anybody who needs a laugh, obviously YouTube is a good source because there's all kinds of funny there.
It is, yes. Yeah,
oh, and my daughter did improv. She was like a winner on the state champions team in Colorado. So I was always impressed that she just decided to go for it and audition, and she was funny. Like that's a big thing to do, improv or stand up. So I'm
yeah.
I couldn't do it.
That's awesome. Improv actually, it is a wonderful thing if you ever get the chance and want to take a class. It helps you be in the present moment, which is terrifying as a stand-up comedian because I find I want to control the whole room. You know, I'm what's saying an improv is different. You want to be, you know, in the moment and you're playing off your partner, but it's a wonderful habit to have. And I always like to take a class. That's awesome that she did that. Thanks, Michelle. Teresa, good morning. And then Sheila, you're on deck.
Good morning. I am in California, where it is really, really, really early in the morning, which is why I did not have my video on before. But since I'm talking to you, I will have it on momentarily. I am an over 50-year-old dog person, so Karen, I am your people. I love what you're publishing. And lately what's been making me laugh is what usually makes me laugh, my dogs. I have actually published 3 books that are, I joke that they're tragedies that happen to me and my dogs because they are, so it's not really a joke, but there's a lot of humor in the books. Right now, I am in the midst of a move from Southern California to Central California. So I'm coming to you live from a very empty house with a mattress on the floor and my dogs spread out all around. Here, wait, this would be cute. Can we see the dogs?
Aww.
And there's a third one back there. So lately our joking has been that if anybody's seen the fabulous show Schitt's Creek, the very opening, the first episode where the feds are coming in and taking all their belongings out of the house. We've been joking that that's what's going on with us from the dog's point of view, that the dogs are like, are we poor now? Do we need to find another home now? Is this all over? Because all of our dogs come from pretty rough backgrounds. One came out of a laboratory where they test on animals. One came from the Chinese dog meat trade, that sort of thing. And they've very much adjusted to their luxury leisure life. Now they're in a home where there's a mattress on the floor and boxes around. And so we've just been joking about what this must be like from the dog's point of view. So I would say sarcastic humor, dark humor, that's kind of where my thing is. So
that's awesome.
I'm
Thank you.
on camera now so I can try and wake
You can
myself
go back
up.
off if you like. Yeah.
I'm terrifying even myself here.
You know, that's one little comedy secret is if you have something dark to say or, I don't know, possibly a little, you can give it to another voice, like a dog or something like that, that kind of lightens the blow. So it's not like you're saying it, it's the dog saying it. But thanks for sharing, Teresa. Sheila, you are up, and Marty, you are on deck.
Hi, I'm really excited about this class. Thank you for doing this. I live in Tampa, Florida, but I'm actually in New Jersey now. I am always laughing because I work with children, and my 5 to 10-year-old group, the things that come out of their mouth is unbelievable. And I could write a book with just things that the kids have said. But one of the funniest things that I've come across is my own daughter. When she was about 7 or 8 years old, I was very frustrated with something that was going on. And I just looked at her and I said, Shreya, where did I get you from? And she didn't even blink. She just looked at me and says, "Mom, you got me at the Big Lots outlet." And I burst out laughing, and that just diffused the frustration and everything else happening.
That's out of the mouth
So
of
that's
babes,
basically
huh?
it about me.
Thank you, Sheila. Marty, you are up. Are you there, Marty? Oh, that's no problem at all. So I just wanted to share a short little video on what I think about humor. And it's Dr. Peter McGraw. He's a professor at CU, and he did a TEDx talk. So we're just going to watch the first 3 minutes of it, but I just find it helpful to kind of to think about humor. So I'm going to share my screen. And then let me know if you can hear this. Is that going through?
Can't hear anything. Yeah, can't.
I'm going to ask you to stand
yeah.
up, turn to someone you don't know, and begin tickling that person. Although some of you may find this request slightly terrifying, many of you are clearly amused. If this is funny, it begs the question, what makes things funny? And answering that question is important for a few reasons. Humor is pervasive. People of all ages and cultures experience humor on a daily basis. Humor influences your choices, from the movies and television you watch to the people you date and mate. And humor, that's true. And humor is beneficial. It makes you happy and it helps you cope with pain, stress, and adversity. Although answering the question of what makes things funny is important, it's not why I'm here today. Let me explain. A few years ago, I was giving a talk about moral violations, and I was making the case that moral violations cause anger and disgust. And I was motivating that case with an example, a news story about a church that was raffling off an H2 Hummer SUV to a lucky member of the congregation. But instead of groans, I got laughs. And an astute member of the audience raised her hand. She said, "Pete, you said that moral violations cause disgust, and yet we're laughing. Why?" I wanted to answer the question of what makes things funny because I didn't know the answer to the question, what makes things funny? E.B. White says, analyzing humor is like dissecting a frog. Few people are interested, and the frog dies of it. Nonetheless, for this purpose, I created the Humor Research Lab, or HURL. And in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to present a theory of humor, evidence from HURL that supports the theory, and discuss implications for how you can have a more humorous life. Let's start with the theory. Caleb Warren and I have crafted a theory of humor that we call the benign violation theory. The benign violation theory integrates existing humor theory and builds on work by Tom Veach to say that humor occurs when and only when three conditions are satisfied. A situation is a violation, the situation is benign, and both of those appraisals occur simultaneously. Violations are anything that threatens the way you believe the world ought to be. Simply put, something seems wrong. Violations take many forms, ranging from violations of social norms, such as a TED speaker asking people to touch each other, to violations of moral norms, such as Keith Richards' claim that he snorted, among many other things, his dead father's ashes. There's many ways to make a violation benign. We've studied 3. One way you make a violation benign is to not be strongly committed to the violated norm. This explains why a bunch of non-religious academics may laugh about a church giving away a Hummer SUV. Another way that
All right. I just wanted to share, thanks for sticking with me with that. But I basically, how I find humor is what he's saying. Something is wrong. Something is a little off. For example, when Sheila said that her daughter said without blinking an eye, you got me at Big Lots. That's not a normal thing for a kid to say. So another example that I want to use is I am always looking for pain. Where is the pain? And I use that word broadly, but basically like what Peter McGraw is saying, what is off? And when something seems a little off, I kind of go with that. So for example, before the pandemic, I was performing on the cruise ships. And this is a great way to connect with your audience or whoever you may be presenting for. I am looking for their pain. And the first day that people get on the cruise ship, they are so excited. They all kind of have their matching T-shirts on, for their family reunion. They've got their mixed drinks, and they're walking around the ship just looking at everything. And I noticed by the third day, it's kind of worn off a little bit. The honeymoon phase of the cruise ship with your family is over, and they're getting a little agitated. So I make a joke about that on stage midway through the week. So that's what we're going to do today is find a pain. And again, I want to stress humor isn't written, it's rewritten. So when I first see something, I'm not necessarily trying to find the funny. I'm looking more for the pain so I can connect with people, and then I'll craft it after that. So Karen, how about we have a real simple thing is when was a time that you were embarrassed? Or if you want to make it broader, I don't, if you're thinking about an audience, particularly if something that they were embarrassed, but when was a time you were embarrassed? And we're going to free form write on that. And again, the first time I write something, I'm not necessarily trying to be funny. I'm just getting it all down. And then I want to, before we start with that, because we're going to, at some point, if people want to share what they're talking about, one thing in the book that Peter McGraw talks about is, I want this to be this is a safe place to share whatever. So you need sort of a board to bounce things off to see if they work. And like Peter McGraw was saying, there's that sort of the benign violation where there's laughter. And if you want to listen to that, I would encourage you to listen to the whole thing. But basically, if you're walking down the stairs, not funny. If you walk down the stairs and fall down and hurt but you don't get hurt. If you walk down the stairs and you don't get hurt, that's funny. If you walk down the stairs and you're seriously hurt, too much, right? Too much pain, that's not okay. And then he says, if someone else falls down the stairs and gets really hurt, then that's funny, because you're not attached to it. So sometimes you can try a joke and you've gone too far, but I would say most people don't go far enough. Their jokes are more, their humor is more sort of walking down the stairs. There's not enough punch. So I write, and then it's testing it out to see where it lands. And you want to have a place where that's safe. So this is a safe
Yep.
place. Can we all agree that
Yep.
we can share without judgment?
So perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to write write down a time that you've been embarrassed, and it can be anything. And we're going to spend 15 minutes, and we're going to take just a brief meditation to get centered. So we're writing out of a state of flow, not critiquing our work. And then we're going to go into another exercise using that afterwards. So right now we just want to, everybody just feel centered and take a deep breath. And just slow everything down a little bit, and feel connected to a state of flow where you can feel energy moving through you. Take another deep breath. And think of a time that you were embarrassed, and don't critique it for commas or words or verb tenses or anything. We're just going to write as fast as you can that story. We're going to take 15 minutes, and everybody, you can either write on a computer or longhand, whatever works for you. And I'll tell you when to stop. So we're going to start right now. Okay, that was 15 minutes.
Awesome.
How'd everybody do? Get some stories? Thumbs up or a little smiley face? Or I know it goes fast. 15 minutes goes really fast. When I do the writing workshops, and we do writing a lot, 15 minutes is a good time frame. And then you kind of disconnect and you can jump right back into your writing again. But 15 minutes is a really good time frame to be able to get content out. Michael, yes.
I just want to say that gave me an opportunity to realize I've had some really funny things happen.
Okay,
So,
good.
So,
Great.
Yeah, so
Great.
that was
Yeah,
that
great.
was fun in itself. Yeah. Okay.
Great. Wonderful. Awesome. Okay, so Stephanie, go ahead.
Yeah. So now we are going to get savage a little bit with our writing. We just did the first sort of dump of what we have. And now the challenge is to tighten it up. So sometimes I go to 500 words, but I think now the challenge is let's go take that and make your story 250 words. Because humor is efficient is sort of the thing. So now we're kind of a little bit more in the editing, and what it does is it gives us an eye to sort of take out maybe you don't need that detail. When you have to keep it down to 250 words, you let some things go. And sometimes it goes in a different direction than you thought it would be. So does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions on that? And I think maybe Karen, like 10 minutes, or do you want
we can do
again?
Yeah, we can do 10 minutes, and then what we're trying to do is to get the story down to. Does anybody want to share their story? And Steph, let's do a little coaching here.
Oh yeah,
and,
okay.
Somebody share their story, and then Stephanie can help you see how to hone it down. Does anybody want to share?
Awesome.
I will.
Can you just
Okay.
tell me how long are we going today on this?
We're going till 10, 8 to 10. So we have another hour. Okay. Yep. Okay, Teresa, yeah, share yours and let's do a little perfect.
Okay.
And we'd love to see your face if you want to get on camera.
Or the dogs.
Okay, but I did it on Word on my same computer, so you just see me staring down at my.
Very good.
Go
ahead.
Fine.
We love
you
your
wanna watch me
voice.
stare?
That's fine.
So I decided to go with an incident that embarrassed me a couple years ago, and every time I think about it, I stay embarrassed about it. So I decided to write it to see if I could find any humor in it at all. So it might not quite be there yet, but it felt very therapeutic to me. So here it is. She was tall and gorgeous, and I was new in town and looking to make friends. I don't require that my friends be tall and gorgeous, but I've always been tall, so it seemed like, hey, we have that in common. Hi, I'm tall too, however, is maybe not a great opening line for an adult. Nonetheless, somehow during the book club meeting, I mentioned height and my being tall, but not gorgeous, or something, but tall. I said the word tall in reference to myself. She looked down at me. She looked down on me. Well, how tall are you? She said, dripping in disbelief. 5'10", I proudly declared, like a child telling you they are 4.5. Emphasis on the half. No, she said. No? Can she do that? Can she declare my height, a height I'd attained 35 years ago by then, incorrect? Yeah, I am. Have been for a while now, I said. The subtext being, and I'm funny. I'm 6 feet, and there's no way you're only 2 inches shorter than me. This was a weird conversation, a conversation I wanted out of, and yet I couldn't find a way to just back out. I'm older, so maybe I've shrunk a little, I said, cringe smiling. And then I remembered a very crucial fact, but I didn't have time to mention it. Yeah, like 4 inches, she said. Mean girls still exist in their 40s and 50s. Now I was trapped. She towered above me, calling me a liar in front of a bunch of people I'd just met. While I knew that I hadn't exactly lied, she was right. I was no longer 5'10". The year before, I had fallen and broken my back, a compression fracture at the T12 vertebrae with some damage to other vertebrae. Doctors said I had lost 1 inch or 1.5 inches of height, in addition to the usual shrinkage that happens when one ages. And Lordy, had I been aging. But could I tell this Amazonian goddess that I'd had cancer and chemotherapy and that caused osteoporosis? So when I fell, I broke my back, and now, yeah, I'm not as tall, but I forgot about that in my effort to befriend you, a person I no longer wanted to be friends with? No, I could not say that. And that was how I found myself in a big swinging dick contest with no dick.
That's great.
That's as far as I got.
That's great.
That was good.
That's
You
good.
need to cut it down.
No, I don't think so either. So Stephanie, any input
I don't know how
there?
many words it is.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Obviously she got a laugh at the end. I mean, a laugh out loud, which is awesome for first pass at that. And the pain is
Physical and emotional.
yes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you notice too, I found it relatable being 5'9" now after being 5'9 3/4 at another time in my
Emphasis on
life.
3/4.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you understand tall
Yes.
kinds of things. And then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was great. And sorry, I was just reaching out to someone who had sent a message. Some people had to go after an hour, and
that's
so I
fine.
was just letting him know. That's perfect. And so again,
I just saw Kim's.
I'm sorry, what?
I just saw Kim's comment that she is 6 feet tall. So apparently, we could have had a tall girls club, except for the fact that I'm no longer tall. In case that wasn't clear.
You are a shrimp. What do you mean 5'10"? That's nothing. I tower over you.
Yes, exactly. With disdain.
That was very good. That was great.
It was really good. Yeah.
Excellent.
And again, too, it's just sometimes I talk about kind of keeping the feather up in the air, and that was a great example of just kind of little laughs along the way in her story she had. And with this first dump of a story, you may not have that, and it may change a little bit too. What's interesting, you may find another part when you condense it down to 250 words. Another benefit of this is if you have a social media post you need to do, or if you have a blog, or if you're presenting and they're like, hey, go long, or you know what, everybody went long. Can you please keep your tall story short? And you've got a couple different options, and it just gives your brain sort of thinking about different ways. So we let's look at condensing it down to 250 words.
Okay, so we'll take 10 minutes and we'll get all of our what we just wrote reduced down, and then try to find where the humor is in it. If anybody has any questions on it and want to ask now, pop up and we can do a little coaching on that. But if not, we'll take 10 minutes and reduce our story down to 250 words. Okay, go. 10 minutes. Okay. Very good. How'd everybody do?
Did anyone find that it took you in a different direction than you originally thought it was going to go? Or any?
That happened to me.
Different direction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kim,
I found out that I had like 3 stories in one. So so I realized I could pull it apart and have at least three different stories.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Great, Teresa. You were able to whittle it down, and that was hard. It is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is hard sometimes, and 250 is a goal. You know, it doesn't have to be. It just depends on what the application is or where you're saying it. But what you don't want is for people to lose their interest in the middle of all the details and get them boiled down to where it's really interesting. And when you have humor in your stories, one second. When you have humor in your stories, people pay a lot more attention and you actually make money. Humor makes money. People connect with you and it actually increases sales and their engagement with you. So yes, Michael, question.
Well, I have a question about time, not necessarily timing, but time, like 250 words turns to how long of a story? Are we shooting for a 45-second story? I know you can't be exact, Stephanie, this question is for you, but what would you say is a good length of a funny story?
Oh, that's, excuse me, a great question. I think for funny, Teresa had a good point. Like, I felt for hers, the feather was kind of kept up. Like every so often there was a little funny part in there. And then at the end, Karen, you even laughed out loud. I can't remember the ending saying.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, so that's something that I would go for is trying to keep the feather up, trying to have something funny along the way, and then have the laughter more at the end. And again, my point is when I'm looking at it, going back to the cruise ship, I'm just looking for the pain. And Kim, you brought up a good point. I had a hard time making it funny. The pain was too great. Did you want to share any part of that? You don't have to if you don't want to. It's totally up to you in the process.
I can share it. I mean, the first experience that came to me, was like 52 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm in grade school and so I was always an awkward kid. I wasn't yet 6 feet tall, but very tall, at age 10. I was sitting in the lunchroom and I hated being in social situations anyway. I was very shy, very quiet. Sitting in the lunchroom with a bunch of kids at a table, and I just let this huge fart go. I mean, it was just like, and it was like, I was just dead in my seat. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was the worst. I mean, it was really the worst experience of my life. And it's so clear in my head still that I know where it was. I know what the room looked like. I know who was next to me. Like the whole thing. So I'm going through this. I'm like, okay, so how am I supposed to make this funny? Like, I mean, it's funny, I guess. I don't know. So I had a hard time, like, Karen was saying, when you pare it down to 10 minutes, think about the humor, put the humor in there. I'm like, there's no fucking humor. Like, what am I supposed to
Yeah. Well, I found myself, and again, there's no judgment, even for myself, but I laughed when you said you let out a huge fart. I felt bad for you, but I laughed out loud at your pain. So, and again, kind of to circle back to what Michael is saying, I know we're not here to be stand-up comedians. You're here to make a point. So if you, what is the humor for, and what do you want your audience to think afterwards? So it's a way to be relatable. I think everyone can relate to being, how many people had an awkward moment in their junior high or when you're 10? It's just, it's part of life. So I have not done that, but I don't even remember what I did, but I know I could relate to what you were saying. So to me, I feel like that's a great example of connection. There's the writing it down, and then it boils down to the connection. You weren't necessarily trying to be funny there per se, right? It was painful, but did people feel a connection with her? Is that just me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So that's what I am looking for when I'm going to write humor. This is an example. You may not want to share that you farted when you were 10 years old, but maybe you have, clients or something like that. And this is an exercise that you can use where you're like, okay, how can I get them to think about solving this problem? And you think about their pain, and you just sort of free form write. What are people coming to you? What are they saying? And you're not judging. You're just writing it all down. And then you go, okay, here it is. Here's the raw material. Now let's make it 250 words and see if you can get to that. And then you test it. So.
Yeah, who else would like to share and share their story? Get a little feedback and see if, read it or just tell about it. Either way.
I would.
Oh, go ahead.
Great.
Great. You can go ahead.
Well, the first one about being embarrassed. I have a grown daughter who will never let me forget that I abandoned her by leaving, the state she was in, even though she was married with children. And so I wrote about a very embarrassing thing that happened a few weeks ago when I was visiting her in Texas. And but the second time, I wound up writing about raising this child who embarrassed me a lot because she was one of those high maintenance kids that just, nothing was ever her fault. She was angry at the world, blah, blah, blah. I was a single mom. So everything was my fault. So it wound up being pretty funny, actually, at the second time around, because I was remembering things I used to say about her, like she came by it, her stubbornness naturally. She was the youngest in the family. She was Taurus the bull, and she was 75% German, so like all of these things, she would suck the air out of the room, just, things I would say and do, and her tantrums were epic. Her brother, who was older, would stand by her and laugh because she was just so ridiculous. And so now, she's got 3 children, and 2 of them act like her. So thank you, Jesus. But anyway, that's how it wound up. And at first, I was also in the frame of mind like, this is too painful, because truly she, I don't visit her as much as I used to because she just has gotten meaner. And she's, in her 30s, but she's not outgrowing her adolescence in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, I think it would be a funny story to go through it. And when I do a lot of speaking, well, not with the pandemic, but when I was doing it, my audience could really relate to the single motherhood or the, doing things for other people. And that's kind of what my coaching is women who, have put themselves last for years and now are ready to do something.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great example of how, your pain kind of coincides with your client's pain a little bit. And again, it seems I sort of boiled down what's the universal pain. For Kim, it was when you first sort of get those junior high, middle age. I know 10 might be a little bit younger, but everybody sort of has a pain for that. Corrine, everybody can make their mom wrong, I think. I know, sadly, I did. And my kids can point out a million things about mine too. So taking that and finding the humor to reinforce what you're trying to say. Because then I feel even if the humor doesn't necessarily land the way you want it to, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're still going to make an impact with the people that you're reaching out to. Selena, did you have something you wanted to share?
I would share what I wrote, but I don't have to.
Yeah,
that would be great.
So I like how I got there. I don't really think the end is anyways, I'll not preface it. Nope, no embarrassing stories for me, but I can tell you about a gift I gave, and it was a good one. The family was over for my stepdad's birthday. My sister was late. She brought rice as her contribution. Well, she brought a box of rice, of course. I'm the oldest, so I get to point that out. My stepdad was just glad she got there because he's a worrier. He thinks everything is going to end in disaster. He's afraid of shopping online because someone will steal his identity, which is ridiculous because who wants the identity of a 70-year-old without a solid retirement and back knee? He is the same way with his cars. He parks 20 miles away from any other car because God forbid someone might ding his 1994 Oldsmobile. I'm always telling him to let it go. So the family was at my house for his birthday and a lovely dinner with a side of rice. I had to leave the party to go to a meeting, and I jumped in my car and began backing out, carefully watching the sides of my car to be sure I didn't hit the rearview mirrors of the garage when I heard a crunch. I hadn't even looked behind me, and I had hit his car, knocked off the mirror, damaged the door. So I had to go inside on his birthday and tell him I had given him the best birthday present, proof that he should, in fact, worry about everything. Happy birthday.
That was great.
That's excellent.
Good story.
That's excellent. Great.
Good story.
Just pointing out some of the places where I laughed and where I saw other people laugh. And this is something I would encourage everyone to do if you sort of have a writer's group or, Michael can throw it off Karen, vice versa. If you have someone that you feel sort of a connection with, and you don't have to tell them you're trying stuff out. I don't say, my kids know at this point, but I just sort of say things in passing to see if I get a little bit of and when you said rice, I kind of went, I laughed a little bit. And so what made me think is if you are presenting, are you here to possibly present in front of people or more writing? Just to have it in a written form.
I'm a preacher, so I'm trying to make my preaching funnier.
Right.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say pause is really all you need to do to give people a little minute. You said rice, and then you said box of rice.
Yeah,
so you kind of almost added. That was keeping the feather up in your dad's 1994. Again, so I would just say, pauses. And I know I know we're just doing this for you. You probably already, if I'm already preaching to the choir, because I'm sure you've been in front of people a lot, that you may already know that. But just for everyone's point of view, just a little pause sometimes to give people a moment to enjoy it and laugh. And just to reinforce again, I just feel like connection, that everybody has that sister, that person. It's me. I'm bringing dessert because I'm always 20 minutes late and I'm just buying a box of cookies on my way to the thing. So that was great. Any other feedback on either one of those that anyone would like to share?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've noticed in the sharing that I'm paying attention and I'm going to my own car wreck story, or I'm going to a story about a family gathering, or I'm going to a story about my father. And so that was all happening while your story was being said. And so that made it tremendously relatable.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, because you're connecting to your audience, and every little piece of humor and every story you tell connects you to your audience and really literally binds them to you, and they become so loyal. They're listening like white on rice, and so the stories and the humor are huge. They really are. That was great, Selena.
Yeah, that was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Teresa,
Natalie.
then Natalie.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Teresa, then Natalie. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just going to comment. There was something about Selena's that made me think about Kim's and what the humor in Kim's, and that was. So Selena was talking about that her stepdad worries about all these things, and then the thing that maybe he wasn't worried about is the thing that happened, and that kind of brought me back to Kim's, where the humor might be because we tall girls or formerly tall girls know these things, like especially in junior high or the age you mentioned, that like you do all kinds of things to not stand out because that's like the worst possible thing that can happen when you're a kid. So if you're writing a story where all you're concerned about is like, hunching down and not being taller and not having to be the last person in line when they line you up according to height and not standing near all the short boys, and you're trying to control all these things so that horrible, awkward thing doesn't happen, and then boom, this totally unexpected awkward thing is what happens. To me, that's where the humor would be. I mean, besides the fact that unfortunately farting is apparently always funny, I think that maybe would be where you could milk the humor, would be in all the awkwardness leading up that you're trying to protect against, leading up to the thing that you couldn't protect against and the reader or listener wasn't expecting. I don't know, that just popped into my head after hearing Selena's, and so I thought I'd offer that.
That's good. Very good.
Or whatever it's worth.
That's awesome. Natalie.
I noticed that I do so much technical and legal writing that it's very hard for me to write anything humorous. I can talk a lot with humor, but when it came down to writing it, it's just like, what are the facts? And I had like 125 words. That's it. And when we had the second session, I did add some things that were funny, but not nearly as funny as anything I heard, for sure. And it was definitely like pulling teeth.
Yeah. And Stephanie, you know what Natalie does, right?
Can you say again? I know you said it's technical.
Yeah. Well, I'm a high conflict divorce coach.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So the challenge there would be, if you want to add humor, you would, the little, and I'm not sure, would you be adding humor in written form, or like, are you talking about talking with clients and whatnot, or speaking about what you do to get potential clients?
Probably speaking to groups to get potential clients.
And I think blogs, Natalie, I think, you're writing in blogs some humor.
Right.
Because lightening the pain that they're in, and there's so much cohesion between all the different issues. People are going to identify it immediately because a lot of them are in the same pain. And so adding some humor to that is going to just lighten it. Like there's people who are in this too. I can.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, make them feel like they're not alone. And
They're not
you
alone, right?
may run in, I mean, the beauty and the curse of being a stand-up comedian is my audience typically is there to laugh, and they know I'm there hopefully to make them laugh. You know, when you're speaking, they may not, you may run into, they may think it's funny themselves, but they may feel like it's not appropriate to laugh, you know. So that's where sometimes just even a little pause and a little smile, I know that's very slight, but you know, you can sort of experiment with that to sort of say, look, this is a little, you know, a joke. Like I talk about, I'm divorced, and we told the kids that a family's like a puzzle, and our mommy and daddy's puzzle pieces don't fit together anymore. And then my daughter yelled 2 buses down to her best friend that mommy and daddy's puzzle pieces don't fit together. So you just make it, you know, sort of make it funny and show them that that's okay to laugh. And then if you want that to, but it's, you know, we're going to get along. If it's to make a point to sort of, we want you to have an amicable divorce. So you have that funny story. You sort of go, yeah, it's okay to laugh. And then you can change your tone a little bit to go, because we want you to get along, or whatever. I'm just paraphrasing, but just the change of your tone, can you have a story to help cement it in their head and then make the point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just, you know, experiment. Like I try things on stage, and it takes 10 to get 2 is something that we say in comedy. It takes a little while to get to it. So if you walk away from this just having a feeling of being more curious about the connection instead of the pressure of being funny, then I have done my job.
Okay, thanks.
Uh-huh. Anyone else?
Heidi, do you have, what's going with you? I know you've got some stories.
I put myself on mute there. I found myself going, I'll turn my camera back on too. I kind of found myself taking it to, I think, a personal experience of this moment, and my experience just being on camera and trying to come up with what have I laughed about recently. And so I ended up with like 700 words, and then I'm like, okay, how does that become 200 words? And so I think I kind of went into more of the now and sort of self-deprecating humor a little bit. And it was interesting when we tried to condense it, how it changed a little bit too. So it's a cool process.
Do you want to tell any of them? Any of the things you wrote? Okay, that's fine. No worries.
Totally
yes
okay.
and no, maybe not yet.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
And Heidi, that's a great, I mean, everyone can relate to being online and the issues that go on with that. So again, just to reinforce the connection part of that. I have a joke where I said comedy on stage is like a hot fudge sundae, and comedy on Zoom is like a fruitcake. It's really dry, and there's a few more nuts than I would prefer, but that's what we got to do, right? So it's just a first point, and then you can go from there. That's an example of this is like this, you know, if you have your humor, and we don't have to go into that now, but thanks for sharing, Heidi.
Yeah, that's great.
Relatable.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. Anybody else? Daniel, anything?
Yeah, I could share what I wrote, but it was an interesting process. After I wrote and focused on this story, I found something else that I wanted to explore, but I didn't do that. I just stayed with this. So I could share what I wrote.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I want to know the story that came from it.
Yeah, this is about what embarrasses me. So that was the prompt. We'll write a story about what embarrasses me. Okay. So I'm a psychotherapist. So when I was setting up a payment plan with a new client, and Venmo being my preferred method of payment, she had said, not a problem, tell me a handle. I didn't know what a handle was, but I assumed it was my name, Daniel Linder or Daniel A. Linder. So she came back telling me that there were many Daniel Linders there and that wasn't my handle. I was at a loss. I had no idea what it was or where to find it. So then I sheepishly let her know that I needed her to tell me what my handle was or how I could find it. Alas, I eventually found it and thanked her profusely for helping me make sure I know how I can get paid on Venmo, my most preferred method. Not off to a great start with this client.
That's good. That was good.
That was good.
That was good.
Yeah. First of all, does anyone want to say what sort of the general pain that he touched on?
Yeah, I think Daniel's leading her, if you will, in the counseling, but he doesn't know, how to get paid. So that would be embarrassing. And then also thought, you can't find your handle of the handle. I think it just kind of went round and round in my head, and that made me laugh. And the whole psychotherapy part of getting caught in that circle. So there were 3 pieces of it, Daniel, that made me laugh.
Daniel, that was great. That was very good.
Yes, that was. And
yeah,
again,
well done.
What makes this a great, to think of it as an exercise, you said it took you in a direction. This isn't necessarily where you wanted to end, right? This is just what you initially wrote. But did you say you had another direction that you thought you might go to?
And I realized I had a much juicier kind of stream track of personal experience that was embarrassing to me. And that is and that I want to work with this more as a result of this. But I'm a relationship therapist, and I have a really hard time dealing with being a relationship therapist and expert when my own relationships are in the toilet. So right now, when I'm going through a period where I'm having a lot of trouble in my relationships, it's mortifying for me. How could I know about relationships when mine aren't working? So there's a lot there. There's a lot that I could extract from that, but I didn't do that in these flow moments, these writing periods right now.
But that's a good direction to go in. That's like doing the circle bubble, and you got all these ideas that come out of it. And yes, that's a great one to write on. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And to me, going back to the first one too, if you were speaking or even one-on-one, you could share that, try and whittle it down to even 250 words. I bet you could, and say, but here's my handle. And wouldn't you remember his handle and paying him with that funny story right before, as opposed to if he just said, this is it. It's just another point of contact and connection and technical difficulties that we all can relate to.
By the way, that was only 140 words.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Great. That's awesome.
Yeah. The shorter you can do it, the better.
Yeah.
Because the whole point is to connect people with you. And so that's perfect. That's great. Good.
Jerry Seinfeld has said he is very disciplined with his writing. And I think in one of his, I can't remember, he laid out all of his notebooks and it took like half a block. But he writes for an hour every day. And he has said, a good day is when I take a 7-word sentence and whittle it down to 5 words. So now granted, I'm not asking you to do that, but just take the feeling of that. Is this word adding or is it subtracting? And you get to the funnier faster, and that kind of punches it up for that. We've been going really long. This is awesome to have everyone. Yeah.
So anybody else want to share their story and get a little bit of feedback? Or any ideas that you're working on, and get some feedback from the group on how to add some humor and connectivity to it.
what if anyone's thinking about that, again, what I'm always sort of looking for is a little bit of a smile sometimes even when someone's sharing the story. You know, when Daniel said, "What's your handle?" a couple of us kind of shook our heads and smiled. And so I'm not necessarily looking for, you know, someone to just break out laughing. If that happens, I'm like, all right, I am on to something. And then, you know, keeping track of everything too is another thing. Like Michael said, hearing other people's stories made him think of his dad or car accidents. A lot of it is just sort of documenting it, writing it down really quick right now, the idea. I have so many ideas, by the way, that I'm like, what in the heck was I thinking when I wrote that down? But nonetheless, you know, you go back to it as soon as you can and sort of write out a little bit more. The dumping it down and then refining it. It's two parts.
Well, one thing that I realized in this session, I really appreciate it, is the contradictions create humor. And so in one of my stories, having to do with the first job I ever had at Rusty's Meat Market, where you would not want to have a meat market with rusty knives. Okay, in the parking lot was a like 30-foot tall Jersey cow with a big smile, yet everybody's coming in to buy parts of that cow to eat, you know, stuff like that. So I'm realizing that there are contradictions can be humorous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, again, I go for the pain and go with that. Thanks. I am trying to think if we should do another writing exercise, Karen.
Mm-hmm. We have just a few minutes left. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so is there, let me think. Let me share my story. I'm going to share mine.
Yeah.
And get feedback on mine. On a 6th grade trip to the zoo, we were passing the orangutan exhibit when an orangutan scooped a handful of poop and threw it at me through the cage. I felt like I was covered with poop. I could see it all. It covered my hands, my pants, my shoes. It was everywhere. My friends were going to see it all over me, and I would smell like orangutan poop on the bus. I'd be the laughing stock for weeks over this. I happened to be the last person in line, so I slowly put some distance between me and my classmates, hoping to find a bathroom. A water fountain was ahead, and in case someone looked back, I pretended to be drinking until the class had gone around the corner. Then I just about climbed into the small trickle of water, trying to get the orangutan poop off my hands and feet. I got the specks off in a few minutes and caught up to my class. Looking down, I saw three more specks on my sneakers. So I hadn't finished it, but that's what I came up with during the writing.
That is mortifying. Thank you.
It was mortifying. Getting on the bus with orangutan poop was humiliating.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What could I do? What could be better on that one?
Well, yeah. Well, let's get feedback from everyone else.
Yeah.
What sort of connected? Did anything make you smile or laugh in that story?
Well, it's definitely connected to my story, right?
Yeah,
it's the same.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's that same embarrassment of like, oh my God, you know, I'm going to get on this bus with these kids and, you know, I'm going to stink. And, you know, I mean, there was a connection immediately to me of like, you know, mortified, right? Just being mortified.
Mortified, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like much farting is inherently funny. So is orangutan poop. That is just inherently funny.
That is, yeah, good point, Teresa. Karen lucked out because orangutan, I feel, is a funny word, you know, as opposed to like monkey. Monkey, I don't think is as funny as orangutan. So that's a great way to sort of talk about keeping the feather up in the air of, you know, possibly adding little nuggets of humor to your story. Is there a funny word you can use? Like, you know, I had, what did I sometimes I talk about sex ed in junior high. And on stage, I call the teacher Mrs. Oljanowski because I feel like that's a funny word. Her name was Mrs. Newport, not as funny. So I'm not really changing the story per se. You're just adding little nuggets to keep that feather up in the air of your story that you want to have, a connection. And again, we may not want to share our most embarrassing moment, but it's an easy thing to remember, and gets you in tune with sort of a pain point and how that can be funny, and then how can you share that with your audience so that you feel that connection. I work to get the words down right, and then right before I go on stage, even though the goal for me 100% is to make them laugh, I'm like, all right, I am going to connect with these people. And that energy is a little more freeing than the pressure of I have to be funny. That feels pressure. And audiences and dogs can pick up on that, so just sort of the, hey, we're going to have a good time and here we go, is a more flowing energy when you're writing too, if that makes sense.
Michael, you wanted to share something?
I always want to share something. Let's see. What I'm realizing is that, thank you for this class, is that the stories don't have to necessarily be like rolling, falling out of your chair funny, so
Right.
I think I've been reaching too far, if you will, and that's created tension in regards to this energy, Stephanie, that you just mentioned, like anxiously trying, I've got to be funny. By the way, I'm going to a pool party tomorrow, and that is frightening to me because I don't, from years of a bad experience as a teenager around water and being like, hugely overweight and all that. So this is great because I've got a couple stories, but I'm going to be lighthearted and tell some funny things and might even get in the pool.
Awesome. Yes. And that's not to say I don't feel, what do I want to say, like amped up or something when I go on stage or whatnot. I give myself permission. And in fact, if I'm too laid back, that's when I get nervous. But I'm not trying to be funny. It's pushing, for that. We've kind of come to the end.
We're good. So any feedback? Anybody want to share any questions about writing and humor or anything like that? We're going to wrap up here. Want to do some prizes?
Well, any just kind of last blitz of anything, Stephanie? Kind of like fast, just tips. I'm writing things down. I'm always taking 1,000 notes, but I'm writing on my other screen here. But just kind of like any sort of tidbits, like, you said, like Michael just reaffirmed here now of like wanting to be, connect before you're like forcing yourself to be funny or it has to be some big funny thing. Any sort of other little nuggets?
Yeah, I would say one comedy writing tool that I use is sort of, this is like this. That might be helpful, Natalie, like if you're doing something, that's kind of a tense situation. So like, for example, when I thought the stand-up comedy is like a hot fudge sundae and Zoom comedy is like a fruit cake. It's a little dry and there's more nuts than I want. So that's one thing that I think about. How can I, what is this like? So again, for everyone on the call, because I know you're not trying to be a stand-up comedian, but if it gets even a smile, to me, I think it helps people remember. Humor is a way to help it land and have people. So that's one way that I add humor. Another tip I would have for writing is The rule of three. I think someone brought that up too. It's duck, duck, goose. Or so the first two are regular and the third is extreme. I mean, I don't know why I keep always thinking about this because it was like 20 years ago. It's not appropriate really now. But when I first started doing comedy, I'd say I went to Walmart because I needed diapers, a gallon of milk, and a gun. You know, so the first two are normal. The third is an extreme. Now I couldn't do that because I don't look like I have kids that need diapers, sadly. And a gun, you know, that's just... And then I sometimes throw in a tag afterwards. You know, that works in they think they don't see what I'm saying in Wyoming or something like that. So a tag you could have would be something that if it doesn't land the way you want it to, or maybe, again, I think sometimes people may feel like it's not appropriate to laugh, even though they may think it's funny, you can throw that tag in and then they're like, oh, all right, that was it. You know, that can have the humor too. Does that make sense? So rule of three is one. This is like this is another way I go. Write down any pain things, any things that are what I call, you know, pain, uncomfortable, or this doesn't seem right for myself and for the audience. If you're going to speak somewhere or if you're writing for a particular audience, it's a great way to connect. They feel like you are paying attention to them if you can make a little bit of humor on their pain, like I talked about on the cruise ship, like halfway in there, but they're a little sick of their family is one way. So I'm going to, my giveaway is, I just dropped it. I'm a huge fan, and I was on his podcast too, Dr. Peter McGraw. He has a book, The Humor Code, but his most recent book is Shtick to Business, What the Masters of Comedy Can Teach You About Breaking Rules, Being Fearless, and Building a Serious Career. So earlier on, if the first person to write this in the chat, hopefully I said it enough that you will remember. Humor is not written, it's blank. Yes, Selena, rewritten is correct. Thank you, everyone. So Selena, I will be sending you Peter McGraw's book. It's a wonderful book. It's just great about really comedians kind of look at the world a little bit differently. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but when something hurts a little bit, I'm like, oh, I've got 5 more minutes of new material, you know, whereas other people, you know, that's sad, but that's a way. And thank you, everyone, for participating and being open and sharing your stories, you know, being vulnerable and authentic. That's, I think, the number one thing to adding humor. If you want to learn more, I tried to put those 2 tips in right there, you know, writing techniques. I'm having a webinar on July 27th for 2 hours where I dive into more of the specifics of humor techniques and whatnot, and different ways comedians are funny, so you can kind of hone in on that. And I can put the link in if you're interested, or please feel free if you just even have a question that, you know, like something comes up for you a couple days later, whatnot, you know, reach out and say, hey, I was thinking about this, what direction or whatnot. It is, did I say, I think I did that wrong. Technical difficulties. It's always humorous because it is relatable. But again, I love making people laugh. To me, being on stage is to feel the energy of a crowd. I just did a drive-in, which is right up there with Zoom calls. The audience are in their car. You can't hear them laughing. It's light outside. There's a reason why clubs are dark. Everyone's scrunched together because that is conducive for laughter. This pandemic, nothing is conducive for laughter. So the first crowd was bigger, but so you would think that would be more laughter. The second crowd, there was maybe 20 cars, but they were all sitting outside and the energy coming. So I look forward to like, what's this crowd going to be like? And for some reason, I can't copy the Eventbrite link, but that's just what I wanted to say and end on that and pass it on to Karen.
Yeah, and that link, the links will be in an email that comes as soon as the class is over. It'll come to you anyway, so you can get that. But Selena, can you post your contact information in the chat? And Stephanie will send that book to you. And then I wanted to tell you, I've got a 5-day book challenge coming up on the 26th. And it's going to be getting your topic, organizing your content, getting humor and color in your stories, and how to set up your book as a business so that it makes money, not just selling through Amazon, but through all kinds of other ways that your book can actually profit you in your company and your business. So I will pop that in the chat. And then my giveaway is a free seat to my August. Let me pop this in here. So if you want to join the challenge, I just put the link in there. And my giveaway is a month of free writing. I hold writing workshops every month, and it's $197 for the whole month, 24 hours of writing. And so my giveaway is a free seat in that in my workshops. And so for the first person to, the third person to post some takeaway from today, I'll give you that a whole month of writing. Third person to post one takeaway from today.
Where?
In the chat.
Oh.
Great. Great, 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 great. Humor is my happy place. That's awesome, Teresa. Connecting before thinking. Connect before thinking must be funny. Excellent. Okay to write about being embarrassed. Absolutely. Everybody has an embarrassing moment. And Teresa, you are the winner. My takeaway is that humor writing is my happy place. That's awesome. Good, good, good. Awesome. So this has been really fun. This has been great. I hope you guys have gotten some good things out of it and how important humor and writing is to connect you with your audience. It's really, it's you know, and it doesn't, as Stephanie said, you don't have to get them rolling out of their seat. Just get them to smile and connect with you. So that's really important. And yeah, connection, inspiration. You guys are, this is awesome. And being in the pain, smiling is humor received, aim for 250 words. Awesome. You guys are great. Any last minute questions or any feedback, any clarifications needed? Thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I wanted to thank both of you for having this conversation, because for myself, it was especially valuable for me being a writer. And one of the things I could write on my shirt is that I'm not funny. I never laugh. I'm serious all the time. And I feel badly about that. I'd like to be able to be funnier in my presentations, in my writing, and bring humor to it. And so this was priming that pump. This is opening up that conversation. And I think it's really important if we're writing or speaking.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, your timing is already there.
Yeah. Good. Yeah,
Thank
good.
you.
All right, very good. Thank you, everyone. And Teresa, I'll be in touch with you on getting you enrolled in that class, and it'll be fun. Yeah. So anytime anybody, and yeah, come to the 5-book challenge, the 5-day writing challenge. You'll get a lot out of it. And it's 1 hour, just 1 hour. Actually, 45 minutes. It's even shorter than an hour. And so it's from 11 to 12 Mountain Standard Time. 5 days, and you'll get some topics of books and some good stuff. So very good. Thank you all. Blessings, and we will convene again sometime. Okay. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay.